Sean Capri. Welcome to episode 133 of We the GamerCast. It comes to you on iTunes, Google Play, and mother-loving YouTube every single Monday. Thank you for subscribing and sticking with us, rating us on iTunes, giving the thumbs up on the video. Even if you're listening to the podcast, you can head over to youtube.com/WeTheNerdy, give a little thumbs up and a comment. It all helps. I always race through this stuff. I want to get to some very important people. At the start here, Mr. Lincoln. Lincoln is just discovering himself on the screen, and he was just waving a second ago. Lincoln and I want to thank everybody at patreon.com/makeusbetter. All of our patrons sticking with us in the month of February. We've got a lot of stuff happen, and amazing things happening. If you haven't already heard, Mark Carabin from the Warp Whistle podcast is joining Make Us Better. It is official. We have Mark Carabin. We know we needed another Nintendo voice as part of the group. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for sticking with us, especially our executive producers, like our platinum executive producer, Mr. Corey Hicks, and all of our gold/gentleman executive producers. I'm not even redoing it. You're gentlemen executive producers. Nick Milicia from Next Level Games, Joel Brooks, James Johnson, Dr. Doom, Jesse Armstrong, Glauco Shaffer, David Ray, Aaron Doherty, Martini Jean, and Mr. Moody. Lincoln, your hair is looking real good, buddy. We're about to go for a bath and story time, but I wanted to give a big old hey to everybody before. We're actually recording this very early, Lincoln. We're recording this on Wednesday, but this is going out on Monday. We're about to hit the slopes. We're going skiing. We're going to the mountains. If you guys, you have to watch the video. Look at him just like mouth open. Just what is Dad talking about right now? Guys, thank you so much for being here. And if you're new, here's the deal. If every week I have sweet hangs with a stranger from the internet. And if you want to be part of the show, tweet at me at Sean Capri. It's Sean like Connery Capri, like the pants. Today is Ryan Turford from Game Moose Podcast. Last week was Blessing Adeoye Jr., of course, coming back to us thanks to all of the support at Patreon. And that was the first ever live episode. Maybe a little taste. Like, I did that as part of the charity stream, which was very successful. I talked about that last week. But I would like to do some more of that. I think we will hit a milestone with Make Us Better where the returning guests go live. I think that might be a thing. But yeah, man, I'm so excited. Lots of good things happening. This is a vision to try and bring as many of us together as possible. Mark, I feel, is the first step. Hopefully more to come. This is, it's a cool challenge, actually, just to try and bring as many of us together. We want to make it as easy as possible for you guys to support all the creators that you do support all in one place. I know that it can be confusing and frustrating, and how do I make decisions and blah, blah, blah. We try to make that easy for you, make it all in one place. So patreon.com/makeusbetter is where it's happening. Speaking of amazing content, congratulations to Pixel Pulse Radio, one of my absolute favorite podcasts on the internet, part of the OK Beast family. They celebrated their 100th episode, and I just love that show. And having recently celebrated our 100th episode, I know how great that feels, man. So celebrate it, enjoy it. It's crazy to think, it's 100. It's a little over 2 years. Nobody knows the math for sure, but about 2 years of week to week making content. It's a great milestone. Not every podcast makes it. Most don't. So congratulations to Alex Van Aken and Brandon Wilson and everybody who helped make that happen. Get them to episode 100. If you haven't already checked it out, episode 100 is a great place to start. So yes, if you guys missed it, Lincoln, did you know this? We revived If We Ran Nintendo as another way to make sure that Make Us Better is giving as much of the content you started with, and it's in a new format. So if you guys want to be on that show, even if you've been on this show, text me, tweet me, all the rest, Sean Capri, and it is a guest format in case you missed it. Jacob, Rush, and Justin Masson were on the show last week, so check it out at youtube.com/WeTheNerdy or on Google Play and iTunes and all that other stuff. And I wanted to quickly say thank you to Luke Lohr for trusting us so much so that he increases Patreon. So normally we say thank you to new patrons for coming on. I want to quickly say thanks to Luke Lohr for increasing your amount, man. Thank you very much. That really means a lot. It is Wednesday, as I mentioned. I am going to talk to Ryan in a moment, actually. When Lincoln is asleep, I'm going to talk to Ryan Turford from Game Moose Podcast. I know I sound like a broken record here, but one of my favorite podcasts around actually also features purple in the logo. Ryan is, I can't wait to talk to him, actually, and you're going to hear from him soon. Why don't we just actually get right into it? Ryan Turford. He's at Ryan Turford on Twitter. Lincoln, are you ready? Ryan Turford.
Well, first of all, this shelf behind me is brand new.
Okay.
All these games used to be on this side.
Uh-huh.
Now just my Sega Genesis games are on that side, and Sega CD games and 32X games. They get their own shelf. That's how special they are.
This is why I wanted to have you on the show, man, because...
Why, so we could talk all about the 32X?
Well, I feel like I really don't get that opportunity that often, and it's not even that I can really talk about it. I kind of want to just get educated about it. Like, why?
I mean, it had a great port of the Star Wars arcade game from the Atari days, of course.
Which was what?
Got some... It was just called Star Wars Arcade.
But it was basically hilarious.
It was like an X-Wing game where you just go down the Death Star trench like a million times, basically until you run out of lives, essentially. So you just keep... If you blow up the Death Star, the game doesn't end. You just go back down the Death Star trench again.
What trench? What trench is left?
You just imagine the whole thing didn't happen.
It's just a redo?
Yeah, basically. There's also there's a secret level where you can unlock to go fight, blow up a Super Star Destroyer that also is destroyed by going down a trench and shooting photon torpedoes into a little tube.
That's so funny. So, I want to get into this because you actually have, your favorite game of all time is a good game. And, so you obviously were able to discern what made a game good very early in your gaming life. Well, why were you involving yourself with such garbage?
Well, I mean, it's just, that's what my parents bought, both me and my brother. I mean, my mom and my dad recognized very early that me more than my brother, but both of us were really into video games. And especially, we were a family that moved around almost every year. Yeah. So basically imagine back in the day, if you will, if you're a new kid every single year, what that's kind of like. A lot of times it's hard to make friends, stuff like that. So the one constant I always had as a kid was I'd always be able to go home and play video games. So, I mean, it sort of started when I was 5, when we first got the NES. And so I played Super Mario Brothers to death. In fact, my brother, older brother Kyle, he always tells me stories about how he used to get in trouble because he wouldn't be able to get his homework done because my mom would force him to play as Luigi with me. So I had someone to play with. I feel so bad.
That is not where I thought that story was going to go.
I had no idea that was even a thing. But yeah, he told me this years later that he didn't have time to do homework because I forced him to play video games because I was too in love with video games, apparently.
Nice one. Well, at what point were you able to separate? When were you able to let your brother go do his responsibilities so that you could play some games?
I mean, it took a couple of years, but I mean, for the most part, it wasn't so much me that was doing that. It was more like my mom and dad were like, "Hey, you and your brother need to be like this. You gotta be tight."
You know what? That is sweet, actually, because they found something. I can imagine you just find anything, looking around the place, what can these two kids do together? Okay, you're doing that. Go with it. I totally get it, man.
Especially because when we were kids, I wasn't really into sports, so I didn't really join sports teams or anything like that. And as you might remember because we're old men, Sean. Yes, of course.
Yeah, I know.
Back in the 80s and 90s, when you were in school, it wasn't very popular to be a nerd.
Right.
A lot
definitely
of times
not.
Really looked down upon, especially if you're the new kid. So imagine being the new kid and being super nerdy in the 80s. That was me. So,
but did you know that you were going to be moving soon too? Did you know that because we moved before, you're going to be moving again soon? Or did you ever maybe fool yourself into thinking that this is it, we're good here?
I mean, at first, in grade 1 and 2, I kind of felt that way. But no, for the most part, I kind of wised up to it. I mean, it wasn't really until high school where we kind of just settled in one place, essentially. It's kind of crazy.
I mean, it's both ways of people accepting you, but also you accepting or even bothering for kids, right? Where you settle down and you're kind of okay, we're going through this all over again. You kind of know the deal as the new kid and how kids react to that, and you go I don't need that. I've got games. Why would I ever even bother with that? It's already better. Even for people who liked.
I have a copy of Total Recall on the NES. It's sitting at home waiting for me.
Of course you do.
How is Arnold Schwarzenegger going to solve the situation and go to Mars?
Okay, but did you watch that movie back then or just play the game?
Oh, I watched the movie. My mom really was into sci-fi movies, so we actually watched a lot of sci-fi movies. Pretty much everyone that was out there, my love of aliens for example, the Aliens franchise, which is my favorite film franchise,
Yeah.
was spawned because my mom was a big fan of it.
That makes a lot of sense.
And so like we'd watch it together when I was like way too young to be watching those movies.
That was going to be my point, was you were the cool, that's what every kid missed out on, was you were the cool kid. People should have wanted to be like, come on over, you got all the games and you got all the VHS tapes of Total Recall.
Total Recall. Now, to be fair, I mentioned the Total Recall video game because it's really terrible.
Why?
Really terrible.
Describe this game. I don't even know. I don't think I've seen it.
It's a side-scrolling, it's not like so much it's a beat 'em up, but you basically just punch everything. And it's got really small levels that have very annoying platforming. So if you played a game like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the NES or something like that, like the sprites are a lot smaller than in that game, but the platforming is about the same level as terribleness.
And like, was the NES like the pinnacle of awful licensed games? Did it get worse than that, do you think?
I mean, you clearly never played the Thor game on the Wii or Green Lantern.
No, I didn't. I didn't know that was a thing.
It only got worse.
No
really
way.
Until the last generation, essentially. That's when it started to get better, at least.
Thor on the Wii? Was that even, like, was the Thor movie a thing?
Yeah, that was when the first Thor movie came out.
Holy crap, how long have we been in this?
There was a licensed Thor movie. It was real bad. Sorry, licensed video game based on Thor. It was really bad.
What kind of game was that?
It was almost like a third-person action and adventure game where you swung Thor's hammer with the Wiimote.
Sure. Oh, there it is. Yeah. I played Ultimate Alliance for the first time on the Wii. Like, the first version of that game I played was on the Wii.
See, that had a lot less waggle.
No, it had a ton of... Well, I think it was optional. I think there was a way to just hit buttons, but it instructs you to just do this the whole time. And there's a free screen grab for some people.
Unlike something like Thor or Green Lantern where it had force motion controls, which is always terrible. Kind of like Lair. That's what made Lair a bad game too, was you had to use the PlayStation Move
on the PS3.
Yeah.
I want to take a quick moment here to give your show, and I'll come back to the origins because I've talked to both you and Drew about how it came to be, and I think it's awesome. But I want to give a quick shout out while we're talking about every game that nobody ever heard of. This is why you need to listen to Game Moose podcast, because you just know every single game. Like there's fakers like me, and then there's like the real deal like you. You know, not only have you like played lots of games, but like you lock it into your memory. And I think that typically you get one or the other, where somebody knows a lot about a few games or they played a lot of games but they can't remember anything. But like you got it all up there in your trap, man. Like where does that memory come from? Is it just like, where does it come from?
I mean, I'm just that way about a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I mean, music is one of those things I'm kind of like that way about too. I mean, movies as well. I can sort of pull all kinds of useless knowledge about movies. Like, for example, did you know, Sean, that Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, takes place in the year 2002, where hair metal still exists?
Let me stop you where I'll stop in the sentence where I didn't know the fact. When you said the 8th one.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't know that there was, well, I guess, yeah. I didn't know that's what it was called. I guess I should say I didn't know that that's what it was called.
There are 12 Friday.
Yeah, I did know it went past X, at least.
Yeah.
I did know that one.
Yeah.
That's so funny, man. So, okay, so you're moving around, and then you kind of settle in high school, so that puts you around, like, what console?
Well, that was the PS1 N64 days.
Okay, yeah. So me and you are like are we the same age? I think we're the same age.
I'm going to be 35 in March.
Okay, yeah. So we're about a year different. So
yeah. Exactly.
I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, exactly. Because like all throughout high school, those are pretty much the two consoles we had. Although at that time I was mostly playing games on PC, like a weirdo.
Oh, what were you playing? Okay, no, because I never get to talk about PC games in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah. There were some real bangers in. I mean, I was playing a lot of
no, you're
Jedi
playing good games.
StarCraft.
Come on.
Specifically, those were my games. Because Jedi Knight actually used to play competitively. Because back before Xbox Live, they had a service called Microsoft Game Zone, which is basically just for PC games.
Yep.
And they had each game had their own ranking system. So Jedi Knight was one of those games. And basically, I was within the top. Consistently, I was like in the top 10 players of the world for the longest time on the service.
Holy crap, man! Great. What about GameSpy? Did you ever jump on GameSpy?
I did, but the problem with GameSpy was that it had a million different games on it, and the games I was playing weren't some of those games.
Mm-hmm.
Like the other game I was really into in high school was StarCraft, which eventually I went on to play professionally for a bit too.
Like you got paid to play.
Yeah, I was in the pro league for StarCraft 2 for a while.
What were your actions per minute? Is that what APMs?
It was pretty fast. I'm not going to go into that now because that could be a whole other conversation.
What else are we going to do? Come on,
come on! I got so many great stories for you, Sean. It's going to be great.
That's what I'm here for, man.
No, I mean I was pretty consistently playing StarCraft for about a year.
Yeah.
And yeah, I made some money doing it, but the amount of time
don't do that. Just stop. And I can do this because we're friends. I'm interrupting.
Yeah.
Tell me the details, man. You're glossing over StarCraft. Tell me, where does it start? How, like, is it the Warcraft 2 through StarCraft, and then you're starting to get in competitive? Let's get into this because. And by the way, if you guys don't want to talk about StarCraft, if you guys are listening, you want to talk about skip ahead like 25 minutes.
Okay.
Because I want to get into this.
Where it starts for me with real-time strategy, Sean, is back on Warcraft 1.
Yeah, dude.
What I started with. That was my first real-time strategy game.
And you had the legitimate one, like, because it came in the battle chest as well.
Yeah, we had the original boxed copy of. We ended up buying it at Best Buy for like $10.
Yeah.
Back in the day. But yeah, like that was where I first started. But it wasn't really until StarCraft 1 that I really started playing it more. Mm-hmm. And at that time, again, as I mentioned, I was sort of more competitively into Jedi Knight. So it really wasn't until StarCraft 2 was released before I was like, I really wanted to make a major play for, playing a game competitively, because that was when competitive paid tournaments really started for a
right. I was gonna say, not even Blizzard knew that was really a thing. It was just, how do we make 3 races that are different and like balancing all of that crazy stuff. And Brood War to this day, I think, is one of the best games. Like probably top 10. I did a top 10 with Game Moose, and this is why your memory is probably better than mine. I don't even remember if I put StarCraft in top 10. I think
you mentioned StarCraft was on the periphery.
Oh, there's no way. There's no way. It's in my Google Doc somewhere.
I'd actually have to go back and look.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the Google Doc. If I just search StarCraft, I'm sure it's there. But yeah, Brood War, definitely absolutely incredible game. So, but like back then, we knew, at least people who were somewhat into StarCraft at the very least, knew that there was something happening in Korea.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why or how I even came to know about that.
Well, that was even before StarCraft 2 came out. Because, like, when StarCraft 1 had legs for so long because of Korea. Because like, people in Korea were, like, basically made it a real sport. Which is why now it's pretty much their national sport at this point. Which is why it was so cool to see a StarCraft 2 competition at the Olympics this year.
That's crazy.
Being a woman from Canada win, by the way, which was incredible. But yeah, like, so
was that the one that people were like, prove that you weren't faking or something like that? Some woman won I thought it was a StarCraft tournament. Maybe it wasn't even StarCraft. Anyway, I don't even know what I'm saying, so I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, it's okay. So getting back to StarCraft 2.
Yes, please do.
When I started, that was sort of before, like, when sort of online streaming was starting too, so I wasn't really going down that road. For a lot of it was I primarily focused on 1v1. I didn't really I wasn't in a team or anything like that. I was playing on my own, grinding away on the ladder every single night. And
what race were you playing?
Zerg primarily.
Yeah,
that was like there were some tournaments I entered where it was random.
Yep, that's awesome.
For the most part, anytime I got to pick, it was always Zerg. Because
how did you win?
Sorry?
How did you win? Did you have like a selection of builds that you would go after, or was there a go-to?
I mean, the one that I found the most success with back in Wings of Liberty, which is when I was playing, was build a lot of broodlings and try and outsmart your opponent, essentially, was sort of my strategy. Right. I mean, a lot of times it depended on the opponent, like what they were playing. If I had seen some of their streams or videos before, I would
snap! You were scouting them out. You were...
Well, because they would do the same for me.
No way.
Yeah, that was a big thing back then. So people would watch replays of other people's content.
Oh, you didn't even have to stream it. Like, you could just watch a replay. Like, if you knew...
The game supported replays, but a lot of times, too, you would, again, if they had a YouTube channel or a Twitch page, you would do that. Because, again, that was sort of expected at that time. I think esports now works a little bit differently than that. But back then, that was a big thing. Because if you didn't do it, they did it to you. So
when Chelsea and I were in New York for one, we've been to a couple Comic Cons in New York, we were in one in San Diego, and one time they had, I don't even know what it was. It was some big StarCraft thing. I don't even know if it was a for real tournament or, but anyways, they had two people in like their pods, so they couldn't see or hear what each other was doing. And there was play-by-play and everything. It was like by far the nerdiest thing I've ever been a part of. Like just witnessing. If anybody, you guys got to do it at least once. This has got to be on everybody who's listening to the show. It's got to be on your bucket list. Witness like real-time strategy esports. I think it's a particular carve out of the esports in general. Like this is uber nerdy. And
I mean, between that or watching stuff like Evo in person, that's the other nerdiest thing I can see too.
I think probably the thing that takes the cake is go play Magic the Gathering at your local comic store.
Speaking of Magic the Gathering, I used to play Magic the Gathering a lot.
No, man.
A lot. Did I mention I've been on the Pro Tour?
Yeah. Okay, so for people who have like skipped ahead and they're like, I don't want to talk about StarCraft, you can keep going because we still got some more StarCraft stuff. But after that, we're going to talk a little bit about some Magic Gathering. This could be a 6-hour episode.
What did I get myself into? Okay, StarCraft.
You knew exactly what you're getting yourself
for the most part,
into.
what ended up happening was Blizzard had
wait, I'm sorry for interrupting, but the whole point of the New York thing was they had these two people in the pods, and they had two cameras. They had one set on like the person, but they had a close-up. It was like affixed to the keyboard, and it was on their left hand as they were entering in their keyboard shortcuts, and it was like they were like playing piano. It was like for people watching the video, it was just like, is that where you were at?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I had a special keyboard and a special setup that I always would roll with.
And did you, like, I watched these guys walk into their little pod, and they would pull out a ruler or like a little, mostly just a ruler, and they would like measure how far their eyes were from the screen and how far the keyboard was from the screen. Like they walked in and made it their own, and it was to like the millimeter.
Yeah. I probably would have gotten that nerdy if I went to a physical competition, but back in the day, they didn't have physical competitions for StarCraft, so it was always online from home, essentially. But yeah, like when I was at home on my computer, absolutely, I did that on my own setup, for sure.
What's the stress level like when you're playing at this level?
It's pretty stressful, especially because it is essentially a job. So if you have except it's probably even more stressful than a normal job, even because again, it's completely performance based. So if you screw up once, it knocks you pretty far down the pecking order, and you can lose some real money that way. So there's a lot of pressure to perform well, and again, there were some good times in there, and some times where I lost really badly.
What did you do? Did you have any rageful moments?
My opponents, essentially.
You didn't rage out?
No. I mean, I'm not a ragey person, as you probably have.
I'm not shocked, actually. No.
I can't even remember the last time I raged out about anything, Sean.
Really?
Yeah.
That's nice.
I'm just too calm.
You really are.
I guess. People say it's really weird that I'm that calm. But
you're just very even keel. You know, as soon as Brock pulls out whatever the hell he's saying next to you, something about being on Tinder or God knows what porn social media he's talking about. You're like,
you know, he's got to pimp that every single episode of Game Moose, of course, which you can find over at game-moose.com.
There it is. There it is.
I had to throw that in the plug just once, John.
I love it, man. Okay, well let's keep on the pro circuit here, and we'll get eventually back maybe to the Sega 32X and whatever other garbage is over there. What about the entry point? Because these are some hardcore stuff that we're talking about here. Like playing StarCraft 2 at that level is elite gaming, man. And I feel like the trend continues on with Magic the Gathering. I actually don't know this about you. Is there Dungeons and Dragons in your life?
I've only played Dungeons and Dragons in high school, but Dungeons and Dragons isn't really a competitive thing.
Right, but it's more about the mental capacity that I think is required.
I mean, there's a lot of math, especially in Magic the Gathering. So you have to be. That's one game specifically where you have to be very, very good at math. In order to be.
Yeah, there's too many sides to that dice for me to keep track, man.
Well, it's not even just the size of the dice, too. For example, when you're trying to manage your storm count, when you cast a certain number of spells, you need to know if you're going to have the requisite mana to be able to combo off in order to use your gut shot or not.
Like I said, there's too many sides on that die.
I know. It's a lot to keep track of, for sure. And I think, actually, Magic, like collectible card games, not just Magic, but even professional Pokemon players, for example, I think those are actually even more stressful than something like StarCraft is.
No way.
Because you're on a turn-by-turn level, but there's so much more that can go wrong in that one turn. Because even one little tiny misstep in Magic the Gathering specifically can ruin your entire tournament. Whereas StarCraft, I feel like there's a little more leniency there in that game.
Ah, man. Well, you're obviously seeing like it in slower motion than the rest of us, because it looks, like I said, when you watch those guys, the keys and their finger, like I can't even fake it as fast as they were doing.
I can't even do it now, but back in the day, man, my fingers can move really fast. Because I mean, your peak for those games is once you're over 25, that's it. You're retired.
That's pretty much like you're like a gymnast at that stage.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's the on-ramp for Magic the Gathering for you? Where does that get introduced for you?
Well, actually, I've been playing Magic the Gathering since grade 8. So this is like 1995 in Ice Age. But back in about 2012, that's when I started to go to some local tournaments, which then allowed me to go to a Pro Tour qualifier, which basically is a monthly tournament that is usually held. They hold them here in Toronto, but then they hold them in a lot of other major U.S. and Canadian cities, as well as all over the world. So that's how you qualify for the Pro Tour, is if you win one of those tournaments, or if you have a certain number of points from attending a certain number of tournaments throughout the year, essentially. So the Pro Tour is basically once every Magic the Gathering set, there's a big tournament that's held. And the format is usually standard, which is usually the 6 newest sets, as well as a draft portion as well. So you have to draft cards. So the Pro Tour I played on was Pro Tour Theros, which is actually here in North America. And that was the Greek mythology Magic the Gathering set. And I was pretty terrible. I did not do well. I finished top 200. So,
how much money are you? Because like this is very different from StarCraft and maybe Dungeons and Dragons. Like in that so much of your ability to move forward is your deck building, and a lot of your deck building is based on how much money you're going to pour into this thing, or trading maybe.
And it really just depends, too, on the type of format, because the Magic the Gathering, as an example, has multiple different formats. There's Standard, which has a certain card pool, and then Modern, which has a bigger card pool, and then Legacy, which has the biggest pool. So essentially, you basically have to, for Standard, usually there's 2 or 3 really good decks. So a lot of times you'll pick which one of those decks fits your playstyle, or what you expect the other players to be playing, and that's what you play. In Modern, it's much more varied. There's like 20 or 30 good decks, so you can kind of play what you want. And Legacy is, I mean, it's all broken cards anyways. But
right. Well, I guess that's okay. So that you said something that sort of like brought me down to ground level here, which is like I just think there's just an infinite number of cards. But obviously that's not the case. There are a finite number of cards, and people have like it's just such a played game that people have figured out. Choose this card instead of that card, and choose this card and that instead of that card. Yeah,
there are certain cards that are specifically built for each format too. So when you evaluate a card, it's very important to evaluate what format it was designed for. Because certain cards they put out are specifically designed for casual play, like playing around the kitchen table, whereas other ones are specifically designed as tournament cards.
So is the casual, because I wanted to add, like, oh my god, Magic is crazy. I can ask like 16 different questions here.
Now you know why Drew and Brock don't ask about it.
Well, and that's why I want to ask about it, because I know you want to talk about it, and I want to learn about it. And I had, like, the closest I ever got to it, people know I've said it a few times, is Overpower, the Marvel total, like, knockoff.
Oh god.
Like, totally dumbed down. But I still have the cards. Did you know that? I don't know if you've seen.
I didn't know they're back there. You got a binder?
They're in a. Well, my dad got me a binder that like is nicer than the crappy binder I had before, but it doesn't fit all the cards. But like I still have like my instruction booklets from my starter kits and stuff, and like it's still like alphabetically organized here. Like Carnage. This is my love for Carnage, where like I didn't even read Spider-Man comic books. But like I love these cards, man. Like Colossus is in here. I didn't read anything, but like all my love for a lot of Marvel stuff is in this, and this is so basic.
For sure. I mean, I'm actually the same way. I never collected Overpower specifically, but back when I was a kid, I used to collect Marvel trading cards.
Yeah,
because that was a big thing, and I have like multiple full sets in my closet.
Dude, that's awesome, man.
Which are crazy, yeah. But now it's so weird to look back on that, because now I don't like superheroes. That's just a thing that me personally, I'm not a big fan of superheroes.
I guess. Well, I didn't need them personified. I guess. Like I like the X-Men movie. Actually, I love especially the first two, and I love First Class, and I liked Days of Future past.
Right. Yeah.
I like that more than most people, I think. But I think in general, like I probably could have lived without that. And, like if this was my memory of superheroes, that would have been perfectly fine. And Maximum Carnage, of course.
Oh, well, of course, it's one of the greatest video games of all time.
The special red cartridges, man. It's one of those games that I probably haven't experienced more than 3 levels of, and so my nostalgia for it is like completely unfounded. Like that and Ninja Turtles.
You never even got to the Fantastic Four level.
I definitely didn't even know that was a thing.
That is totally a thing. You go to the Fantastic Four Tower and recruit Reed Richards as the support character.
Dude, that is awesome.
I can't believe I remember all that.
Of course you did. Did you have guides for all of that stuff?
No. I mean, for the most part, actually, I used to have a subscription to Nintendo Power.
Of course.
And then my brother had a subscription to GamePro.
Oh, nice. You guys were covered.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Now, mind you, Maximum Carnage was not one of those games that was covered. So it was mostly just me grinding that game for hours to learn all this stuff.
That's awesome. I want to get back to Magic. Because the reason I brought up Overpower was because they had these nice starter packs that you could get. And that was and everybody was starting at the same time. So for you, like, is there any hope of you getting anybody around you into Magic?
Probably not. But no, to be fair, when I first moved to Toronto, my old roommate that I used to live with and I used to play all the time because she knew I went to all these tournaments, and she's like, oh, well, let's just play. So I pulled out all my old cards and we used to play together all the time. And yeah, I haven't really played too much since. I play a lot of Magic Online as well, which is kind of cool.
Is that an easier way to get in? Because it just seems like a huge investment to me.
Player.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you have players around, if you have people around you, that's always the best way to play it. But if you don't have people around you who can play Magic the Gathering, there's actually a free-to-play game on Xbox called Magic Duels that Drew and I talked about on the podcast before.
What's it called?
It's called Magic Duels.
Okay.
It's a good way to get started because it basically teaches you all the rules of how to play. It lets you play with some of the cards. It lets you build a collection. You can play online as well, but it's a lot less robust. Again, it is more casual friendly. So if you are
less robust in what way? Is it the same cards just online or? Yeah,
they're just digital versions of the same card, especially because Magic Duels basically has a specific set of cards it pulls from. So that's sort of what you have to work with. Where Magic Online is essentially just the card game with every single card physically printed in digital form. And you can play money tournaments in that as well.
Oh, there it is. That's the free-to-play model kind of thing where are you gambling basically?
It's not free-to-play though, because you have to buy all the cards, Sean.
Oh, so it's free to start or whatever we're kind of saying.
I mean, well, you even have to pay $10 just to open your Magic the Gathering account. But on Magic Duels, it's totally free to play.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, so what were you talking about? Because I was talking about
Magic Online, the PC.
Oh, okay. So Xbox is truly free to play.
Yeah, it works like Hearthstone, where essentially you'll earn packs, you'll open them, you'll get new cards that way. Again, Drew and I, when we played Magic Duels, because we actually played it on the podcast like 2 years ago when it came out. Like neither of us paid a dime and had a lot of fun playing it.
That's sweet, man. That sounds okay. So that's the answer that I'm digging for is because it's something that if you're into video games or nerd culture at all, it's something that you've heard of before. There's no way that anybody gets to this level of listening to podcasts and you haven't heard of Magic the Gathering, and you've either been a little intrigued, like maybe there's something, even just the smallest amount of intrigue in you, or you've decided 100% I never want to try this. And if there's any chance, like I've just kind of always wondered how people get into that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think actually the easiest beginner games, if you've never played a collectible card game like Magic, would actually be the Pokemon game, because the digital Pokemon game also is really good at teaching new players how to play. But also Hearthstone is also a really great game as well. Although I don't like the level of randomness that's in Hearthstone. That's why I don't like it as much as something like Magic the Gathering, because there are a lot of cards in Hearthstone where you'll play it and then it'll basically do a dice roll that will affect how good or bad it is.
Oh, I see what you mean. Not the randomness in terms of the way that the cards are drawn, but the impact of the card is a random number.
It's tailored. Because with arcane missiles, you can either do 1 damage to 3 damage to one creature, or 3 damage to your opponent, and it's just completely random how that works.
That is just one example in your brain that you just pulled.
Yeah, I mean, arcane missiles is also a really good spell in World of Warcraft, Sean. So.
Obviously.
Obviously.
I never did World of Warcraft. You did WoW too?
I'm still playing WoW. That's the game I've been playing most. In fact, I played it for like 30 hours this week, Sean.
30 hours this week.
Yeah.
Why aren't you playing something else?
It's fun fact, Sean. Before World of Warcraft Legion, which is the current World of Warcraft expansion, came out, I calculated and posted on Twitter my playtime for World of Warcraft since 2010. You want to take a stab at how many play hours I had in World of Warcraft?
It's going to be measured. I'm trying to it's not even
just
hours
number
anymore.
of hours, Sean.
No, but it's going to be measured
and rounded
like
up
months.
to the nearest 1,000.
Oh my god! I have no. Are you at 5,000 hours?
More than that. 7. So what my last count was 6,682, which translated to like eight months.
Oh, that's almost 286 days.
Yeah.
Okay, walk me through this a little bit. How does that happen?
So, as going back to the StarCraft conversation, I've always been a fan of Blizzard. Blizzard is one of my top 3 developers. So I play everything that they make, including World of Warcraft, because I was such a big fan of Warcraft 3 and even Warcraft 1. Going back to that when we talked about that, I love the lore in Warcraft. So
and that's the reason you just mentioned the reason I didn't get into it, because I didn't love 3. Like, I really just didn't. I wasn't there yet. My brain is too slow. It's too stupid, and I don't like change. And that was very different for me.
I've been playing World of Warcraft, if you can believe it, Sean, since 2004 when it came out, because I played in the original alpha for World of Warcraft, and I've been playing pretty much ever since.
So the 7,000 hours or whatever you said was from 2010?
Yeah.
And there's more?
I used to play a lot during Burning Crusade, which was the second expansion.
I am just in awe of you. By the way, this is not judgment. This is just like, man, I wish. That sounds amazing.
No, because in a lot of ways, World of Warcraft, for me, was a great socializing game, because I got to meet a lot of really great, lifelong friends through World of Warcraft, just from raiding. But the thing is, when I look at World of Warcraft, to me, and the reason I really like it as a video game, is because it reminds me so much of the games I used to love on the NES, because World of Warcraft, if you've never played it, is a game all about mechanics.
Yep.
Really tight, really well-developed mechanics, and understanding how those mechanics work. And those are the reasons why I love games like Ninja Gaiden or Castlevania or Mega Man. The same reason I like those games is the reason I like World of Warcraft, because doing raids in World of Warcraft, the closest analog I can make for you would be Destiny.
Yep.
Destiny raids are all about mechanics in the same way. And that's what makes World of Warcraft so good, because World of Warcraft has been doing that forever.
Did they invent it? Or is that like a Ultima Online?
It was a thing in EverQuest.
Or EverQuest, that was the other one.
Really big MMO.
Yeah.
And then World of Warcraft came after Final Fantasy XI, which also came out around the same time. I also played a lot of Final Fantasy XI as well, but not as much as World of Warcraft.
Is that what's your favorite? Should we make mention of your favorite Final Fantasy?
My favorite Final Fantasy game would be 6.
Oh, that's not what I was expecting.
No?
What are you playing now, though, that keeps popping up?
Final Fantasy 14 is what I was
There it is.
That's also an MMO, Sean.
I'm just imagining Drew listening to this okay, there it is.
I think we already lost the conversation with him the second I mentioned World of Warcraft.
No, do you think so? Drew, if you've made it to this point, please tweet at us and just let us know that you're still here. It'll be like a time capsule that we just threw out into the ocean.
Yeah, and I mean, World of Warcraft for me also is my chill game. It's the game I play whenever I want to chill out and relax, because when you're not raiding, it very much is an open world action adventure role-playing game. So that's I'll listen to podcasts, listen to music, just whenever I want to relax. That's World of Warcraft is my relaxing game. Or other MMOs like Final Fantasy 14 is the same way.
How many games do you think you played last year?
Well, if I had to count, I would say probably ballpark at least 100, 150.
Holy, that's enough. 150, as in you played them enough to sort of form a basic opinion about them. It's not
I'm not including the Evil Within 2 or Wolfenstein 2 where I played only 10 minutes of. I'm talking about.
Dude, I did the same thing with Evil Within 2. I'm not much further than that, but it was kind of this isn't it. Yeah. This isn't what
Drew and I played it on our Extra Life stream, and I haven't played it.
Yeah. Did you finish the first one?
Yeah, I did.
So
I really liked it.
Yeah, I love the first one. I just didn't like where it ended up. And then the second one was just like, carry on. And I just didn't, I hated that.
The problem was with that game is I decided to make the really dumb mistake, Sean, last fall of playing Persona 5 in the fall rather than in the summer, like I should have.
Yeah, that was
because
real dumb.
It killed a lot of those games for me, where it was tough to go back to one of those, because by the time I finished Persona 5, it'd almost been a month or two since those games had been out, and it's tough to go back to those games, especially because I liked Persona 5 so much. Like I barely finished Horizon in time for our Game of the Year awards, which I really wanted to do. Like that was a big point for me.
You didn't need to.
Oh, I needed to.
You didn't need to. It didn't need to be there.
I had to platinum it too, Sean.
Oh,
of course.
God. No, I'm just not there with it, man. I want to talk about your game collection for a second here. How much of it is like original versus either recapture or buying in addition to your foundation of a game collection? Because it's impressive, man. Walk me through the game collection a little bit.
Well, the thing is, Sean, most of the game collection I have here was purchased by my parents when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So all the really old games, basically the anything pre-PlayStation 1 era was purchased usually by my mom or my dad, which is really weird because I can't believe they picked out some really amazing games without having any knowledge other than commercials, essentially.
So were they like
yeah. Like, for example, something like Castlevania.
Yeah.
The reason my mom bought us Castlevania was because she likes vampire movies.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so she's like, ooh, this looks cool. There's Dracula on the box. This guy has a whip. All right. And then, of course, she went out and we liked that one, so she bought us the other two Castlevania games after that. Or something like Mega Man. The first Mega Man game I played was Mega Man 3, and it was over at a friend's house. So my immediate reaction was, Mom, we need to go buy this game. So we bought Mega Man 3, and then eventually, throughout the years, I would ask for like a different Mega Man game for each one of my birthdays or some other event. Anytime my mom would be like, hey, we're going to buy this game, which one do you want? It was usually a Mega Man.
Right now, just as you say Mega Man 3, like in my mind, and I hope this is the case for everybody else, I'm hearing like the music that plays when you start a level. Like I'm just hearing that launch in my head.
Good. It's so good. I love the music in Mega Man. Like that's one of the things that drew me to that, and Castlevania as well, because the music in those games in particular is just so well done, especially for NES games.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think that was my deeply rooted love for rock and metal music. Like I think that there is a lot of, it's obviously not, it doesn't play like that, but there's a lot of like the beats and like a lot of galloping triplets and stuff like that that like remind me of Lamb of God and Metallica and stuff like that. Like it's kind of weird, but like I've always, I don't know. I kind of like, I only bring it up because so many people already love Mega Man, but have a probably like a predisposition to hate metal. I'm like, no, you actually like it. Those two
which is
things
also
are
so
actually
weird
similar.
because Mega Man didn't sell well. So it's weird that so many people are into Mega Man, because
It didn't?
Yeah, no, it didn't, because it's like the highest selling game in the entire franchise was Mega Man 2 at less than 2 million copies.
But like none of them had long enough to sell. Like they were just like, they were like sports games pretty much. Like 3 and then...
I guess, but like yes, there was one every year, but they stayed on the market for a long time.
Yeah.
Like they kept making cartridges.
So I guess
they weren't selling.
It's just people think that they sold more.
Yeah.
That's
it's
so
the same situation
weird.
with Metroid, because everyone always assumes Metroid is a big franchise. Like there's a lot of love for that franchise, but it also doesn't sell well either.
But then you got to look at like almost like the entire catalog of Mega Man. You go like somebody somewhere at least had a touch point of one of those games. They may not about all of them. So collectively, maybe those first, whatever they are.
I think it's more just a similar situation to that we saw with Persona before Persona 5 came out, where so many people played, like the people who did play the Mega Man games were the people who evangelized it.
Yeah, that's a good
loudness.
point. Yeah.
I mean, just like me, when I talk about Mega Man, I'm always super enthusiastic about it because I love Mega Man. I love that series top to bottom. Even Mega Man 8 with the terrible cutscenes and the terrible voice acting. We need to get the power cells, Dr. Wowie. Yeah, if you've never heard the voice acting in Mega Man 8, just look up Mega Man 8 voice acting on YouTube. It's amazing.
I don't think they have to, man. I think they just got it just now.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
so funny. Holy crap. Do you think like a game, what a silly title, Mega Man. But like for kids, we're like, that is the best thing. It was like Mega Man and Astro Boy.
Well, that was also the Americanized version of it because he's known as Rockman in Japan.
Yeah, you couldn't
Even
do
though
that.
he does not have rocks on him.
No.
He's just Rockman.
Well, he was shooting pebbles, maybe. That was about as close as it
Well,
got.
it's more along the lines of his sister is Roll. So rock
and roll.
Yeah, which goes back to your whole rock and roll argument as well.
Oh, I wonder if there's that. I wonder if that's a thing. There's no way. There's no.
It's a bit of a
that there's a lot of rock. I don't know.
I mean, it's also there's a lot of like techno influences too. Like
definitely
a lot of sick dance beats in Mega Man.
Sick dance beats, man. Maybe I should find like an OC remix album of Mega Man and just have it playing, and people at the beginning, as we're talking about StarCraft and Magic the Gathering, like, what the hell is this Mega Man stuff happening? And now it catches up, like, oh, okay.
Yeah, now they finally understand.
I wonder if I should do that or not. We'll see. We'll see afterwards.
Really,
so you mentioned before that your mom loves sci-fi, and one of your favorite movie franchises is Aliens. Yep. First of all,
even though they've had really terrible newer movies, but
yeah, it's like totally sullied by. Like there are actually more really horrible alien movies than there are good ones, but
there are. But I will still stick with them despite the fact that they're terrible.
Yeah, and are you like? Is there even camps anymore? There was a time where I held very strongly that the second one was my favorite, but I think I've come away from that.
You're always usually in one of two camps. You either think that Alien's the best, or Aliens is the best.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And like I think I've moved camps. I think I got up and I was like, this place kind of stinks. Like maybe I should go over to that other camp.
Yeah, like I was actually for the longest time as a child, I loved Aliens. That was my favorite movie.
Same here. Yep.
But watching Alien again as an adult,
made
me realize that the original Alien is so much better of a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look back on that series now, actually Alien 1, like the original Alien, is my favorite.
It's crazy, and I wonder if most people have done that same journey, because as the teenager or a person who shouldn't be watching it, probably as a child watching it, it's a little early.
Yeah, exactly. And
that's all you want.
My mom
would
always be like, "Hey, don't look at this part."
And you know what part really I always think of with that movie is where they're stuck in the vents and they're getting chased, and then they pull the pin on the grenade, and I always like. Like I was too young to watch that self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
Like that really stuck. That, and I can't place the timing on this. When I watched Mortal Kombat and they were murdering each other.
Oh, the original Mortal Kombat?
Like the movie Mortal Kombat. And like they were like straight up killing each other. And I was like, that's it? Like they're just dead? Like they were just fighting. Like I played Mortal Kombat as a game.
In half in that movie.
What? They're just and Goro breaks people like and you can't beat him. Like that put the fear of a true villain in my heart and soul. Was that movie? I probably like and a year or two makes a huge difference at that time.
Yeah,
I was probably a year or two too young to be watching that.
Mm-hmm.
But like,
I went to go see that movie in the theater with my mom, and she was like, "Oh, this is totally fine."
Yeah, I went with my dad.
What could go wrong?
And like, you don't even know the damage it's doing while you're watching. You're just like, "Oh my god, this is amazing." And then you're like waking up in the middle of the night with like Scorpion's skeleton head, like blowing fire all around you.
And part of that too was just, I think it didn't bother me as much because I was just used to those movies by then. Whereas it just, I guess.
And actually, that was a bad example because it was the straight up murder that scared me more than anything. Like that.
But
like
if you watch that movie now, man, it's so cheesy.
Oh,
and that's what makes it so great.
Right.
So much better. So much better than some of those other video game movies like Super Mario Brothers or Street Fighter. God, I feel so bad for my parents because I made them go 3 times to the movie theater with me to go watch Street Fighter.
I never saw that in the theater. I ended up only seeing it on VHS and just.
You did the right thing.
I was never a big I never thought Jean-Claude Van Damme was that great.
That's true, but I loved Street Fighter at the time because
of course, because it's Street Fighter.
Me and my older brother were going to the arcades every weekend at that time and playing Street Fighter and Turtles in Time as well, but mostly Street Fighter. That we had those 2 arcade machines in our neighborhood, so we were playing a lot of Street Fighter. And then like even when it came to Super Nintendo, like we bought it the day of, like the day and date when that it came out. I still have the copy on the shelf behind me. And like I remember that being a special day because literally me and my older brother played Street Fighter for like 8 hours straight.
Of course you did.
Yeah.
How many versions of that game do you have?
Of Street Fighter 2?
Yeah.
I only have the one with me. We used to have Turbo, but I lost my cartridge of Turbo along with Maximum Carnage. They got lost in the same package, Sean.
I just want to go and buy it for you now. I bought one for my brother, and I feel like...
Well, actually, it's on the NES Classic, though. The SNES Classic Turbo, if you've never played it.
Oh, I meant Maximum Carnage.
Oh,
I want to go buy that for you. But all I want to buy... I just want you to have the things. I just want you to have all the things, Ryan.
Really? Because, there's a couple copies of Cool Spot that I'm really needed you to pick up for me, Sean.
Oh, that's right. That's
right. I need the Super Nintendo version of Cool Spot, and then the Jaguar version of Cool Spot. There's no Jaguar version of Cool Spot. That's a trick question.
What is your... This is a totally off the wall, speaking of Cool Spot. What's your favorite... I don't even know what to call it. I'm trying to think of, like, Cool Spot as an example, or, like, Sneak King, or, like, these games that shouldn't even really be games, but they're based on a license.
Pepsi Man. Pepsi Man for the PlayStation 1. Pepsi Man! He runs really fast. That's all you do in that game.
Dude... this is why I love... Can I just, like, call out something here? This is why I love talking to you. I didn't even really know what I was asking. Like, I didn't know how to form that question of, like, these are, like, a particular type of... And you knew what I was asking, and you had an answer for it.
The best part about your examples, Sean, was, and Pepsi Man included, is that I've owned all three of those games at one point.
Come on.
Sneak King and Pepsi Man and Cool Spot. In fact, actually, I still have two of those games. I just don't have Pepsi Man anymore.
Dude, you are something else.
I traded in to get my PS2, and I was very sad that day. It was too much.
Why did you do that?
Oh, because I couldn't afford a PlayStation 2, so I traded in. I was a dummy and traded in games back then. And in fair, it probably wouldn't hold up today, but it would hold up in the cheesy way, which would make it work. Kind of like when I go back and play Friday the 13th on the NES now, it holds up in a really terrible way.
Oh, no.
Because it's a terrible game.
It doesn't even make sense, though.
Yeah, but...
Speaking of random...
You, have to, go cabin to cabin and light fires, and eventually you go into the woods and fight the severed head of Mrs. Voorhees in order to get the torch, and then you go find Jason and throw the torch at him and kill him.
Totally makes sense.
That's all you do in that game.
That totally makes sense. Like, that's the journey I would expect to take.
The NES version of Predator. Have you played Predator on the NES,
Oh my God,
Sean?
I just love talking to you. No, tell me about it.
So, in Predator on the NES, first of all, it starts off as like a side-scrolling platforming game where you fight giant scorpions and dudes with machine guns and you throw grenades at them. But then...
Scorpions, the classic NES enemy.
Well, of course, especially in Predator.
Oh, dude, I was terrified of scorpions as a kid.
But then the cream of the crop is basically there are these auto-scrolling levels where basically you play as Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he takes up 3/4 of the screen.
Awesome.
On the video. I'm doing this with my hands to emphasize how big he is. And you fight giant floating predator heads that fly at you, and then eventually one really big predator head comes down. And then you have to shoot it as many times as you can. And that's the whole game. It's 50 levels of that.
Oh my God. God bless the people who made these movies. And the best is people all over the internet are just slamming these games now. Like, we look back at it and we don't talk very fondly about most of them, but some people put a lot of some people are like, look what we figured out how to do. We made these heads fly around all over the place.
We made it so the Joker could shoot lightning. Yes. That was the thing.
That was amazing.
Darth Vader turned into a purple scorpion. Speaking of scorpions.
That I don't remember.
So that on there was a Star Wars game on the NES where you fight Darth Vader at the end, but Darth Vader when you get to the second phase, he turns into a purple scorpion.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, he does.
What is this total disregard for were the people making these games? They had no I feel like they just had a bucket of assets that.
Well, actually, a lot of times what ends up happening, Sean, is they were at one point a completely different game that was then reskinned to be a licensed game.
That makes
sense. Very similarly to Journey to Silius, which is an NES game that was originally a Terminator game.
Oh, wow.
But then, 6 months before the game came out, they lost the license to Terminator. So then they had to strip everything Terminator related out of the game and then sort of make it its own sci-fi game instead.
So, okay. So I was going to say something surely would have kind of carried over, but it was sort of the setting more than anything.
Yeah, exactly. Because eventually then, I believe it was Probe or someone else got the license to Terminator instead. And that's how we got the Terminator games on NES and SNES. So
that's actually kind of like Super Mario 2.
Yeah, exactly like that. Like,
but that turned out way better.
All the times with games.
Yeah, that's a podcast you should do. Do you ever want to do anything more? Not that I like think that Game Moose is not enough, but do you ever want to do anything more?
Game Moose itself is a platform for many different things, Sean. I mean, it's more just time because I mean, as you probably know, I mean, I have a job outside of the podcast, and unfortunately, it takes up a lot of time, and then the podcast is everything else, and then just playing World of Warcraft. Come on, that's like a job there.
Totally.
What else can you be doing?
These are choices that we have. That's a totally
like that. Yeah. But it's always just knowing what angle to attack. Because whenever I try and produce content, number one, I always want to make sure it's something that I would listen to, that I would get some enjoyment of, and that's something that I'm passionate about. Which is why the podcast, the Game Moose podcast, is structured the way it is, because it's structured after a lot of the different podcasts that I personally listen to.
Yep. So
stuff like Game Scoop and Kind of Funny and Giant Bomb, all those different things. Like those are my inspirations for making that show. So for me to tackle something like that, I always thought about doing it. It's more just been a lack of time, because actually, a couple of years ago, I used to do Let's Plays every single day, Monday to Friday, for like 8 months. That used to be on top of the podcast, on top of my job.
Yeah.
So, and I knew how stressful doing something that was. So I mean, it's really just trying to find the best venue for doing something like that. But I've always wanted to do other pieces, almost like history pieces about games.
Because you'd be really good at it, man. Like you have like I said, some people fake it and they actually do fairly well, but like it's all there.
Yeah,
it's all up in that brain of yours.
And I mean, I don't know everything about every game, but I mean, for the most part, like most of the games I've played, I do feel like I have at least some knowledge.
That's what I noticed that almost immediately about your guys' show. I mentioned to Blessing like it was his cadence right away, but like with you and Drew especially, you guys bring up like some game that was from like 6 or 7 years ago, and like you're talking about it as if you played it 2 hours ago.
We're also really old too. That's what old people do.
Well, I don't know, man. Some like I'm basically just I've never been able to do that. Like no matter like it's not even, and it's just getting worse. Like, but my brain has never really worked like that.
That's true.
I absolutely love Game Moose. I want to loop back to Aliens. I brought it up for a reason because I wanted you to wax poetic a little bit about the game that is sort of a ripoff of that. Yeah. Your favorite game. Tell me why Metroid is your favorite game ever.
Well, actually, Super Metroid is my favorite game ever.
I'm sorry, I dropped the Super, but yes.
No, that's all good. Because Metroid and Super Metroid are very, very, very different games, Sean. Come on, let's be real here.
I'm sorry to be ignorant. I managed to get through an entire... I got through an entire Black History Month. I wasn't that ignorant. So
it's all good.
back to a white guy on the podcast, and we'll get back to ignorant.
I don't know. I feel a little intimidated, mainly because Blessing was on the show last, and that guy, man, he's an inspiration. So
both you guys are like right there, man. I'm telling you, you guys are awesome. Anyway, I wanted to hear
back to Super Metroid. So the thing is, with Super Metroid specifically, I talked about Aliens being my favorite film franchise, and at that time, the time I played Super Metroid, which when it first came out, essentially, I couldn't put into words why I liked the movie Aliens.
Right.
I just knew I liked it. So it wasn't really until I played Super Metroid for the first time and realized why I liked that movie and why I like video games in general. So, or the video games that I like, because one of the things that Super Metroid does very well is atmospheric storytelling. Basically being able to tell you its story without any dialogue, just through the environment, through the sound design, through the music design, through the enemy design, through the way Seamus acts and sort of proceeds through the environment. So in a lot of ways, it all sort of clicked basically when I got halfway through the game. So there's a point for anyone who's played Super Metroid before, they'll know this part. When you go to the red soil area of Brinstar for the very first time, there's this really atmospheric melody that plays. And basically, I used to go to that area and just sit there and just listen to the music over and over again, because that was back before the internet existed. You couldn't just look up the song or anything like that. So I would go and sit in that area, and it just, one day, it just clicked. Like, I was like, oh, I love this game because I love the music, and I love the enemy design, and I love the level design. I love the way that this looks and feels. I love how it feels like I'm isolated, like I'm alone, sort of on this planet. And if I don't do something about this problem, no one else is.
Yeah.
And that's going back to the Alien movies, that's what's great about those movies too, is that you, against all odds, the Sigourney Weaver is able to get through those impossible situations, and it does the movies do a great job of sort of telling you so much more about the alien lore without having to over-explain everything. Like even just seeing the Nostromo for the very first time, the ship, and seeing basically the insides of the ship itself, everything from the table to the tables or locker rooms and things like that. Like it tells so much about the story of that ship than a narrator could tell you.
And there's something about space that like locks in this against all odds kind of thing. Like I feel like it's unmatched actually, and it actually kind of relates to the sweater that you're wearing as well, which is what I like. I think BioWare is among the best, if not the best, at putting the player up against something that you can't win. Like it's the no-win situation of like the Reapers are like, how the heck are you gonna beat the Reapers? There's no way.
Yeah, and especially after Mass Effect 2, like you better believe. Like I was like, how are they gonna approach you fighting the Reapers in the third game? I had no idea how they were gonna pull that off.
And it's similar to the Blight in Dragon Age Origins, and I guess that's the carryover, like fantasy as well, fantasy and sci-fi. Maybe it's just BioWare. I don't know. That was definitely what I was missing I was missing that in Andromeda, although maybe I didn't get far enough to really get there.
No, you didn't.
Yeah. By the way, why don't you go ahead and plug the spoiler cast?
Yeah, so on Game Moose, we did a spoiler cast for Mass Effect Andromeda. It is known as Game Moose Side Ops Episode 2, which again you can find on our website, game-moose.com, or podcast services around the globe.
Dude, do more of the side ops stuff. I think that's the answer of trying to find that balance of too much and all the other things, because you should still continue to play the games. I'm not trying to convince you to walk away from any of that. Before I let you go and we can tell everybody where to find you on the internet, I did want to touch back to, you mentioned that you were streaming every single day, Monday to Friday, for like 8 months. I've talked to you a little bit about like on-ramps of getting involved in StarCraft and Magic the Gathering. Talk to me about the off-ramp. This is obviously something that's top of mind for me, as Bobby has walked away from podcasting, at least for the time being. I'll never say never, but what was it? Never say never, that you're never coming back. What was that decision like for you to walk away from something that was so entrenched in your lifestyle?
Well, for me, it was actually, after hearing Bobby's situation, I felt from him what I felt at that time. Yeah. Where it was very much, I was stressed out. I was not a very fun person to be around at that time. Yeah. I was fighting depression, and I mean, I've been fighting depression during a lot of my adult life, but especially then, like I was really sort of at my one of my lowest points. Yeah. Forever. And yeah, I mean, that was the main reason to walk away. And it wasn't just a forever thing. It was more, with that type of situation, it was more, I just needed to change the structure. Like the structure that I had wasn't working for me, and for my lifestyle. Like I needed to take a step back and sort of figure out the best way to do things. And just what I was doing before wasn't worth it. Now, mind you, that was also before we were doing content for the website. And doing reviews and other things like that, going to events and whatnot. So that was mostly just me trying to, again, do my own thing, because I was passionate about that. Because I loved playing games, especially on camera, because I finished so many games on camera. Some of them even for the first time. Like the very first time I beat the original Legend of Zelda was on camera. Like,
that's awesome.
Start to finish.
Yeah.
But that was something I had never ever done before, and it was such a special moment for me. Whereas, so I always do. That's one of the things I really like about streaming. And that's what, like, the angle I probably will take in the future is, rather than doing like pre-canned content like that, just taking a day or two that I feel like streaming and just do that.
Yeah, because like there's something about the passion that you're getting that that reward, intrinsic reward of creating something and enjoying what you're creating, and then all of a sudden that thing turns against you.
Yeah.
Where like, why is this a source of stress for me? This is supposed to be fun, and it has completely turned around and stabbed me in the face.
And part of it is to, and I think this is for me personally, is that I do create like that type of creation stuff at my job and at home, like doing that. And so, I mean, I feel like the combination of doing that much creation was sort of what broke the camel's back, essentially.
Right. It's too much of a good thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Too much
and I mean, I was doing it was a lot more manageable when I was doing it every couple days.
Yep.
But yeah, like 5 videos a week was too much.
Yeah, no
especially
kidding.
for creating like that. But I mean, I've always loved doing creative stuff. I mean, that was the whole reason I went into a creative field to begin with, because I mean, I've always been someone who's always wanted to be in like video production or content creation or something like that ever since I was really little, like I was 5 or 6 years old. That's when I really wanted to get into it. And I was influenced over the years by people like Adam Sessler and Victor Lucas and Greg Miller and so many other people that I just don't have time to name. And that was the main reason I went into my profession. Was sort of their inspiration. And likewise, when I create content, I always want to approach it in the way that I want to create content so then maybe I can inspire someone else to also be creative and do their own thing, kind of like the way I was inspired.
Yeah, man.
So that's why I put as much as I can into the podcast and everything else that we create over at Game Moose, for sure, for that reason. And again, I can't think of a situation where we'll ever stop creating things.
Yeah.
It just might be the workload is sort of where the problem lies.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Well, I hope you guys continue on. How many episodes have you done of Game Moose?
115.
I hope you do 1,015 more episodes. I absolutely love it. Well, I mean, I would understand if you stopped before then. I'm just trying to say that I like it. I like it quite a lot. Why don't you go ahead and tell people where to find it and where to find you on the internet? I always love when people let guests know that they enjoyed their time, so I want to make sure that we get yours nice and clear.
Yeah. Of course. So you can find our website, game-moose.com. Yes, it has a dash in the middle because that's just how we do things. We have reviews, previews. The podcast is there as well as many other things in the future. So look out for that. You can find me on Twitter at Ryan Turford. That's Turford, but you can just copy paste my name from the spelling of this video if you want. You can also find us on Twitter at game_moose_cast. And on Facebook at facebook.com/GameMoosePodcast and podcast services around the globe.
I'm really looking forward to somebody saying, you know what, just Google it. That'd be a really fun answer.
That's the problem, though, because if you Google Game Moose, the Manitoba Moose comes up instead.
Oh, but that's when that's a milestone for you guys to hit. As soon as you supersede the Manitoba Moose. Come on, guys, let's get a little bit more traffic over there. Get them taking over.
Our SEO rating, Sean, is not good enough.
What league is that even?
Oh, that's the WHL, Western Hockey League.
Yeah, I guess I just don't think of that as Western, like west of Ontario. Is that the whole deal? Like anything like west of because you have your own league.
Yeah, we have the OHL.
Yeah, so I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, because the Western Hockey League is everything west of Ontario.
Exactly.
Because then there's the Quebec League, which is Quebec, and then everything east of Quebec.
Yeah, that one has about as many letters as PUBG, Elemental P, and sometimes Y.
Jesus Christ.
Good times. Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show, dude. This was an absolute blast, and this was short notice, so I appreciate you being on.
Hey, thank you for having me. Again, I listen to the show every week, Sean. You do an amazing job, and this has been a blast, man. We'll have to do it again sometime.
I can't wait. You took the words out of my mouth. I can't wait to do it again, dude. Okay, remember when we talked at the beginning? I hadn't talked to Ryan then. I just talked to Ryan. We just said goodbye. He sent me his MP3, so that's why it sounds so nice. He did a nice local recording. That doesn't always happen, so thank you to Ryan. That is exactly what I needed tonight. I hope it's exactly what you guys needed today. Just a good old nerd talk. Like, just dive right deep into the depths of nerdom. Thank you so much, Ryan. I mean it. I can't wait to have you back on. We need to chat more. That was so much fun. Ryan Turford, of course, at Ryan Turford, TURFORD on the Twitter, game_moose_cast. If you liked even just a little bit of that, go check that out if you haven't already. Wholeheartedly Canadian, unabashedly Canadian, the Game Moose podcast. I love it. Speaking of great podcasts, I was a guest on the Xbox Empire's PlayStation. I keep saying PSVG and always think PlayStation something. Play some video games. I was with Nathan Thomas and Donnie Reese. Check that out at playsomevideogames.com. It's a monthly show they're just firing up, and I was lucky enough to be part of the inaugural episode. Is inaugural always first, or is it inaugural when it's an annual? It was the first one. So thank you, Nathan. I just loved, we talked about why I got into Xbox to begin with, and some great stories there, and just what exclusives throughout the ages, the original Xbox, the 360, and now. Just kind of remind you guys, Xbox always had great games. So check that out. PlayStation again. Sean, I could do this again, but I won't. PlaySomeVideoGames.com. Thank you guys again. Follow me on Twitter at Sean Capri. Sean like Connor Capri. Like the pants. I do If You're Red Nintendo, brand new format. If you guys want to be on the show, tweet at me just like this one, and we'll get you on. That one, we can have repeating guests. We can mix and match. If you do a show with somebody that you like, let me know. We can pair it up. You bring your own topics, and we'll give it a go. I'm loving it. And my computer works now, so that's all cool. We have Monday night tonight. It will be live on youtube.com/WeTheNerdy. I don't want to say the guest because just in case things change, but I promise you guys it'll be good stuff. Good stuff. What else do I have to tell you? Just that this video looks so great. Thanks to our video designer, Antonio Guillen. All the artwork looks so great because of our artists, Gary Gray and Adam Leonard. And this is, of course, powered by the Dayspace Network. Otherwise, this is episode 133 of We the GamerCast. It's now in your ears and in your eyeballs. Thank you again for listening. I'll be back next week. Now it's time for Jason!